Memories are a core aspect of oneself. But what if those memories aren't your own? Would the thought scare you? Shatter your sense of self? Do you still remain attached to the objects and activities that have always brought you comfort? Or do you lose yourself and fail your duties, to be replaced by another to repeat the exact same situation? It's an endless test, and an endless loop. What kind of goal would be worth this kind of struggle? For the good of a prospering nation, of course. A nation of control and suppression. If you don't fit neatly into the box that the government has decided for you, your life might feel like a living hell. So you make choices to try to find your own sense of personal freedom where there is none. Replika and Signalis are humanoid androids. Each type has thoughts, behaviors, and memories based on a specific human gestalt's blueprints. They're used as tools for labor. In Signalis, you play as a replica Adler, who wakes up in a ship crash-landed on an unknown planet looking for someone. Images of a girl and the phrase, "Remember our promise," flash in your mind multiple times as the game begins. Adler wakes up in the remains of the Penrose ship. Despite not much being left, everything necessary for a good tutorial is still intact. The Lesser Unit manual provides information on how to self-repair, combine items, and inspect them for more information. Some areas shift perspective in the first person to look at spaces in more detail. Information about the ship's missing pilot, A. Young, as well as a smeared photo of her, are located in the ship. By inspecting the photograph, you get the code to the keypad to open a seemingly empty chamber. A bloody keycard is found in desperate need of some TLC. A replica specialized in combining items can easily combine the broken keycard with some adhesive tape to gain a functional airlock key and leave the ship. These basic actions are the core of this game's survival horror gameplay, and are all taught to you in the opening moments. Explore, collect items, solve puzzles. Adler then leaves the ship trudging through the snow until she comes to a large hole in the ground. You pick up a strange book, and after some visions flash on screen, you jump forward once again. This time in the Sierpinski mining facility, where the majority of the game takes place. At this point, Adler's looking for someone named Alina. And given you're exploring a mining facility, you're really only going to be going in one direction, down into the depths. Each stop along the way needs to be explored in detail, looking for keycards, information, resources, and weapons to defend yourself. What starts as a few disfigured replica bodies left aside in hallways turns into a real threat as they get up and chase after you. There's a sickness spreading through the facility, killing gestalts and mentally and physically disfiguring replicas. As you explore deeper, that sickness seems to warp and reshape the world around you. The dimly lit hallways are an echo of a functioning facility, with kitchens, dorms, clinics, and other offices home to a very limited amount of resources. Areas contain locked doors you can open with access cards, or by opening from the other side that unlock shortcuts looping areas back into one another. Each area is so dense that you'll always have a destination in mind. Whether that's making multiple rounds to scavenge for health and ammo, or by finding and bringing items to specific locations to solve puzzles. So you continue your search while staying alive to the best of your ability. The designers created such a tense atmosphere. Only a few replicas are left uncorrupted, but not in any shape to be of much help. The only other things moving around now are replica long corrupted, posing a threat to your life. The game knows when to use music and when not to. When there's no enemies, there's very little sound. You're left listening to your metal footsteps echo in the dark hallways. When you're not so lucky to be alone, there's a subtle, almost heartbeat-like sound in the room with you. Some rooms are too dark and you won't be able to interact with anything without a flashlight, but enemies react to light, so you need to figure out when it's a good time to use it. The glowing eyes of the replica pierce the darkness. They quietly patrol areas and will scream to alert others if they see you. The music shifts from a quiet beat into an assault of loud visceral noises, creating this oppressive, dangerous quality. With a limited number of resources, you're encouraged to think about each encounter carefully. If you do decide to fight, the sound of firing your gun feels impactful. With each shot, all other noises become muffled for a second, putting all the emphasis into your bullets. This strong atmosphere is captured while using low-resolution graphics, simulating an old PS1 game. Each environment is meticulously detailed with realistic lighting that casts stretched out shadows of enemies and objects, playing to the strength of the game's isometric camera angle. For everything else, sprites are used that seamlessly blend the rest of the game's art direction. Signalis loves to use the color red from Adler's breastplate, making her easy to spot in the game's environment, to flashes of red during disorienting visions, to the most vibrant red you'll see that flashbangs your room, even bleeding over the text when you save your game. If you're familiar with survival horror, then everything here you've seen before in some form, with most similarities with Resident Evil and Silent Hill. There's the interconnected level design, inventory management, and burning bodies of the former, and the oppressive sound design, vague story themes left to interpretation, and kicking enemies when they're down from the latter. It even inherited Silent Hill's fascination with one-way holes to who knows where. What Signalis does with these similarities is refines them to perfection. The way Adler controls creates natural moments of tension. Actions are inconvenient, but in a way that's fair and forces close call encounters with enemies. In the past, clunky and inconvenient tank controls were used to achieve this feeling. Signalis makes an excellent compromise. It has free movement, but a slow movement speed that's even slower when turning, creating that tension found with tank controls, but with a modern, more accessible control scheme. Even using your weapon takes commitment. First you draw your weapon, so there's already a short delay between pressing the button and when you're ready to fire. When you're aiming, you move much slower. A reticle appears over the enemy that gets smaller over time. The smaller the reticle, the more accurate and more damage each shot will do. But with each shot, the size of the reticle will reset. Waiting until the reticle is at its smallest might let you preserve more ammo, but each second you wait, enemies are getting that much closer to you. Wait too long, and you find yourself backed into a corner, unable to avoid damage. Space becomes just as crucial a factor as health and ammo. Signalis encourages you to avoid combat altogether through its limited resources. On top of that, you can only carry 6 different items on your person at a time. This results in some tedious, but very intentional item management. You can't carry everything with you, so you're always in danger of not being fully prepared. I can see this being a big problem for some players. It's frustrating having to backtrack because you don't have enough inventory space. But areas are designed with that in mind. The more familiar you become with each space, the more efficient you can plan ahead and make use of the shortcuts that make future routes easier. The key word being plan. The game is not hard, but it forces you to be careful and plan. You can scout areas, filling out your map, collecting items and bringing them back to storage. But each time you make a round, enemies have a chance of getting back up, risking more damage. Interacting and picking items is in real time, which means you can still get hurt. You don't want to waste healing items, so instead you can choose to combine them. Items like repair patches and repair sprays heal you over time, but combining them together will create a repair spray plus that heals for less, but heals immediately. So you start to ask yourself questions like, do I need health now or over time? Or, can I create more inventory space by combining items, saving me another risky trip? You can choose to leave most of your inventory in storage and use items as you find them, relying on storage in a pinch. If absolutely necessary, you can even destroy ammo to free up your inventory. The only problem I see is not being able to destroy or waste healing items in the same fashion. If you have full health, you can't remove health items from your inventory, and Signalis is very generous with them. But to be fair, leaving items in the rooms they're found in and coming back for them only if you actually need them is just as viable a strategy. Puzzles are isolated into single areas, keeping them from being overwhelming. A lot of times you find something important to interact with, accompanied with a note providing some type of hint. You look for a key item in the same area, connect the dots, and find a creative solution to unlock the way forward. There were only a couple I really didn't like, with the slow trial and error furnace, or the game asking you to associate the constantly rotating star map with the astrolabe. Adler eventually finds a radio receiver that's used in some really creative puzzles. Adler can tune the radio to different frequencies in order to receive and broadcast passcodes. Some enemies are even weak to radio frequencies. The secret sauce that melds each and every element together is the UI. Navigating dark rooms and hallways with an isometric camera presents a challenge. You need to search every room thoroughly. With an art style that emphasizes low fidelity, Some objects are only a few pixels wide, making them hard to spot. Being a supercomputer replica that you are, Adler interfaces with the environment around her. When you get close to objects, they're highlighted by the UI, making them easier to spot and complementing the isometric view. When you walk up to doors, symbols pop up telling you if a door is locked, unlocked, or opens from the other side. Door status will update on your map automatically, so no more checking each individual door in a hallway just to see if they're locked. Important information and objects are marked in their respective rooms, and dark rooms are marked with a distinct pattern on the map. Menus resemble an old PC. Keyboard clicks are heard with each action over the hum of a computer fan. You can access Adler's inventory, radio, and health readouts. Documents are found throughout the facility that are even committed to computing memory for you to view at any time. This interface is tied with Adler's state. Menus will distort and flicker when you're low on health. There's even the eidetic module that works as an in-game camera. You can snap a photo of a puzzle solution and view it anywhere as long as you have the module with you. These days, everyone has a smartphone they can slyly take a photo of their screen with, or even consoles that take screenshots. But it's a really cool concept seeing a simulation of pen and paper note-taking, a traditionally outside game resource, incorporated as an immersive in-game mechanic. Even the gunplay benefits from the subtle UI elements. When pointing your gun at an enemy, your reticle shows focus, translating to how much damage you'll do by the size of the box. But it also will show you whether or not you have a clear line of sight by showing an X if anything is between you and your target. One of the cooler elements of the UI is how enemies passively cause the screen to distort. Whether an enemy is alive or dead, you'll see screen glitches creating this feeling of unease. Enemies do get back up if you don't dispose of their bodies correctly by incinerating them. So seeing the game and the UI acknowledge them even when you think they're dead gives this creepy air about it. Is this the time I walk by and you finally get back up? Even the final boss plays around with screen distortion in order to obscure attacks and increase the difficulty. That attention to detail follows arguably into the most important part of the game, the environment. There's so much you can learn about the world through the environment. The ship alone in the beginning of the game teaches you about the role of the Penrose program, the role of replicas, as well as the current misfortune of this Penrose ship and its missing Gestalt. You're left to gather information through what's been left behind. Diary entries from Gestalt and replica alike detail events within the facility. Security cameras follow your every move, showing you aren't entirely alone. Propaganda posters contextualize the gameplay. Proper disposal of corpses by incineration keeps them from reactivating after they've been infected. No running in the halls because everyone, including infected replica, can hear you. The rule of 6 dictates a person carry no more than 6 items on them at any one time. If your oppressive government's propaganda creates survival horror-friendly environments, maybe we could look the other way for some rules given the circumstances. That or maybe it's time for a change in leadership. Most replica were designed to fulfill service roles. Each model's behaviors and memories are based on a Gestalt's neural pattern. However, their memories are actively suppressed in order to remain productive. They're made to keep diary entries and are treated a certain way to avoid situations that stimulate their memories to prevent loss of efficiency. They're to be decommissioned if they're observed gaining a sense of individuality. Playing as Adler, she has her own visions of the past, or someone's past. History is told not only through the world, but through the experience of replica and their connected Gestalt's past. As a result, that past is shared between similar replica models, mixing with their individual experience after they're created. The challenge of the player is parsing through those memories, which makes things all the more challenging when elements of the story change and unknown amounts of time pass between important events. The sickness is spreading to both Gestalt and replicas, killing Gestalt but corrupting replica into this disfigured state. You see their bodies strewn about the facility. All of your enemies are other replica models. You'll find papers in the facility discussing each model's behaviors and known issues. This information not only adds detail about what roles each was designed to fulfill, but this vital information doubles as a guide to help you combat them as enemies. The known issues on ARA models show that they're used for construction and repair. They construct service tunnels and floors and walls, and you see their corrupted counterparts use them as tools for ambush. Though they aren't very good at their job, they retreat back into their tunnels as soon as you leave the room making it seem like they're constantly late, timing a surprise party each time you stroll through. Yule models were used for domestic tasks like cooking and cleaning, which is why most of them come equipped with knives. Star units are guards and come equipped with a riot shield, baton, and extended legs to move more efficiently. Colibri amplify signals used to control other replica, so their corrupted counterparts use that signal to disorient and obscure Essler's mental state. Essler herself is a model type designed to repair themselves, as well as mission equipment, giving context to healing items and your knowledge of how to make use of them. Even the surge in this barely understood replica technology outpacing traditional technology is acknowledged by a document explaining how something like a replica can exist alongside old computers, cassettes, and floppy disks. A lot of these documents are contextualized as classified for the commander's eyes only, reinforcing the control and suppression of this place's governing body. You're told in the notes, as well as in the tough living conditions, a tale of military nationalism. The nation has plans for expansion toward the other planets in the solar system. Everything must be for the good of the nation, with protectors, enforcers being a better word, made to enforce this grand vision. Censorship shown as redacted text and documents, banned books, behavioral suppression, and re-education through school. The world may have a story, but Essler has a story of her own. Her story is a slow burn. Rather than learning from the world around you, there are a few scenes that explore her past. I'll have a timecode on screen for spoilers, because I want to briefly talk about some of the major elements of the story. This is very much a character-driven story, one with only 2 cutscenes directly revealing Essler's motivation, one at the midway point, and one in the ending. With so little screen time devoted to Essler's story, it still manages to work so well. The midway point provides the much needed reveal that, ready for it? Essler's in love. Visions tell Ariane's story. It shows someone who grew up with little interaction with the outside world, their totalitarian government included, showing an interest in the arts and having that life ripped away to relocate and attend school in an urban district. Notes exist of teachers hoping that if the school can't beat those frivolous ideas out of her, then the military service might, so that she may participate in the society of our nation. Ariane was bullied in school, had her interests suppressed, and assigned compulsory military service. Tired of it all, the Penrose program seemed like her only escape. Essentially a one-way trip in search of life or suitable planets for expansion. I feel for Ariane and how trapped she must have felt to see this as the better option. Her self-expression led her to befriend her replica, who we know as Essler, developing a relationship and treating her without restriction despite the nation's strict guidelines. It's a beautiful story, finding joy and connection in a life desperately trying to maintain control over the both of them. Bioresonance is only described in detail toward the end of the game through the banned book, Song of the Gods. It serves to enhance the themes of control. Few are able to hear and even harness the power of bioresonance, allowing them to manipulate the world around them. It's seen in the Grand Empress, who is responsible not only for founding the Yusian Empire, but also creating the first replica. Falk units were created as the highest authority for each Aeon facility, created with a bioresonance module, allowing them to also harness the powers of bioresonance. Bioresonance is such a unique concept. It's a scary thought that something so powerful exists for few to control. It explains all the strange phenomena without having to explain anything at all. It strengthens the themes of suppression and control, while explaining why the government's top priority is also suppression and control. It's easy to see if someone with bioresonant powers falls ill to an unknown sickness, how that sickness would spread, how that sickness would affect even the world around you, killing Gestalt and disfiguring replica. Connecting the dots, you can understand how Ariane uses it to influence events, visions, others, and Essler herself. Then there's the horrors of the false memories to think about. You see it with the replica being widely produced, and each model sharing a Gestalt's memories and treating them in ways that would suppress those memories, given fetish objects related to their Gestalt's interests in order to keep them docile and unquestioning. They even keep diaries. You get insight into Adler with his diary entries, experiencing true fear when he realizes something might be wrong with him. He's dating each diary entry with the same date, and feeling this sense of deja vu with each day. With self-realization comes thoughts of being decommissioned. Worst of all, you can only assume if he's decommissioned, he'll be replaced with another Adler model to repeat the same cycle with the same expectations. Lingering Gestalt memories, bioresonance making anything possible, as well as gaps in time in the game's story, become a vehicle for obfuscation. A lot is left vague and open to interpretation, but there's still enough here to dig into, create theories, and just enjoy the story. Survival horror has been around for some time. A lot has already been figured out about what works and what doesn't, so you can see how Signalis took all the lessons learned from survival horror games of the past. It used that framework while crafting an interesting world and story to make it stand out on its own. Developed by a two-person German studio, Rose Engine, Signalis is a distilled refinement of what has come before. Thanks for watching the full video. If you want to support the channel, consider liking, commenting, subscribing, and sharing the video with others. You can find me at Ryan Beardy on social media, as well as Discord with links in the description below.